You can probably guess where we are today. We're behind the wheel of my M2, and I thought it was about time that I took you all for a little drive, talk about my first couple months with the car. We're a couple hundred miles away from the break-in service, so I've got some mileage to do over the next few days, but I just wanted to take a little drive, talk you through some of the things that I really love about this car and how it may or may not have met my expectations. This will just be a nice sedate little Sunday morning drive before we start recording stuff in March that's going to be a bit more, shall we say, violent. So this is the 2025 BMW M2, the LCI, Life Cycle Impulse, I think it stands for. So BMW originally released this in 2023. The new version of the M2 with the M3 M4 S58 engine, so this is now a proper M car. The previous M2, whilst it was a fantastic car, the F87 had the B58 engine, which is the same engine that I had in my Supra, which I sold so that I could get this. The OG F87 was putting out about 450 horsepower. The update takes that to 473 horsepower. And I'll be really excited to see what this does on a dyno, because the 453 HP, as car enthusiasts know, BMW always underquote their performance figures. That was putting out 500 horsepower to the wheel. So with an extra 20, this has got to be closer to M3 performance. The platform is built on the M3 M4 platform. It's the same body essentially as an M4, but 20 centimeters shorter. And as I said, it's the same engine. So this really, for me, is a two-door M3, which was one of the reasons why I wanted to own one of these. So let's go for a drive and I'll talk you through my first impressions after 2 months of ownership. So to be fair, this was not a long-term plan at all. I don't even know quite how this happened, but I bought a GR Supra 3 litre a couple years ago, and that was a phenomenal car. 335 quoted horsepower. It was actually dynoed at closer to 385 horsepower with BMW's B58 engine, and that was the closest that I've ever driven to a BMW M car, because for all intents and purposes the Supra is basically a Z4 with a roof and a more refined chassis, because that was designed by Toyota. But I had a couple little niggles with the Supra. Firstly, the fact that it was a Toyota Supra in name and in tuning, but under the bonnet it just screamed BMW everywhere, which isn't so much a problem because I am a BMW guy, but you always kind of have that sort of imposter syndrome, because it wasn't a true M engine and it wasn't a Toyota Supra in the purest sense, because it had all of these BMW components to the point where if you opened up the engine or you looked at the suspension and so on, you can just see BMW badges everywhere. They don't hide the fact, and you know, that's fine. That's what the modern world is. We're a global economy and companies will share platforms, they'll share engines, and that's absolutely fair enough. But as someone who is a self-confessed petrol head, I just kind of wanted a little bit more. And then there was the practicality aspect, which was a little bit frustrating because sorry, it's just this car gets a lot of looks. So yeah, there was the practicality aspect, because the boot on the Supra was a little bit awkward. I also had a Mini John Cooper Works, which is a phenomenal little car that was furnished with BMW's B48 engine, which is a phenomenal little engine. It's the same one that they use in the, I believe, in the 135 and 140i. And that again, you know, little pocket rocket, great for getting around town, but not much good if you had to get more than a few bags of shopping in the boot. And then the Supra was just a bit awkward. The Supra was also quite low down, so for someone at 6 foot and over, I was getting a little bit fed up of banging my head all the time. people in this country don't know how to use roundabouts. So sorry about that. It's give way to the right for anyone that doesn't know. Anyway, so there was the practicality aspect, and then YouTube was suddenly up in arms, and my YouTube feed was just full of the new BMW M2. I was just being shown videos of it left, right and centre, and I've always loved the M2s, but it was always a struggle as to whether, you know, I got an M2 or do you just go for a full fat M3 if you're not going to get the full fat M engine. So obviously the internet was up in arms over this car when it first came out, because everybody said it was absolutely ugly. I don't think BMW's initial press shots did it any favours, but then people started to get quite fond of it, and not call it as ugly as they spent time with the car in real life. I'm not one of those people. I never ever thought that this car looked horrible. I mean, it kind of actually reminded me of the old two-door M3 from the 90s. I think it's the 90s or the early 2000s. I think it's the E46 maybe. But that kind of has that sort of more squared off sort of look. And this, definitely the design of this almost seems like it's a nod to that. So in terms of looks, I absolutely love the car. And then there were all these comparison videos. So they were putting this car up against cars like the Mustang Dark Horse, the Porsche Cayman, and this thing, maybe not off the line all the time, but certainly once you get into the mid-range, this thing, and I know this from having the Supra, these BMW engines, they pull like absolute bastards. They're phenomenal. I was on the way to a car meet with a really good friend of mine, and he's also my neighbour. He lives a few doors down, and he had a Cayman GTS, and as we were going up the motorway early in the morning, we dropped to 50, and then we did a sort of rolling start from there, and his jaw just dropped because the Supra just left him for dust. So these BMW engines are absolutely phenomenal. We've got a nice Range Rover driver who's right up my exhaust pipes. Why did I do that? So then I got really interested. The other thing I've always loved about the M2 is it has a boot that's actually usable. You can get stuff in it. And the two back seats as well. That was the other thing I was missing in the Supra, because if you were going out with friends, I don't drink, so I'm usually the designated driver, but when I got the Supra, it's obviously a car like that, you want to use it and drive it around, but if four of us were going out, two had to get a taxi or a bus home. So so having two back seats again was quite attractive. So I placed the order for this in August, and luckily somehow I found out that there was an updated version, because when I was shopping around for price, the one BMW dealer said, have you got a quote for the LCI or the non-LCI? And having had a Mini, I'm familiar with the LCI term, meaning that there's been a facelift. And so I did a bit of digging and realised that actually I needed to be careful, because I could end up ordering what would soon become the older version of this M2, this G87. So I ended up at BMW Park Lane. Their customer service is excellent, by the way, so anyone who lives in the UK that is a bit fed up with customer service from car dealers, I definitely would check out BMW Park Lane. Speak to Lee or Brian, they're amazing. And I actually placed a build to order for the 2025 G87, which is the car that I'm sat in today. So I went for it in black, metallic sapphire black, I think it's called. After deliberating over colour for so long, I just decided to go all kind of murdered out. So black alloys, black car, black interior, but just with the red bolsters on the side, as you can see there. I didn't go for the carbon bucket seats because I was just worried about long-term comfort, and also they were like a £5,000 option or something ridiculous like that. I wanted a sunroof, having had a sunroof in the Mini, and it's not something that I would really want a car without, because to me it just makes a lot of difference. It just feels lighter and roomier inside, and I like to have a bit of fresh air in the summer. Let's just get ahead of this cyclist. There we go. So yes, after deliberating over colour for so long, I just went all black because I figured I could always wrap it in future if I got bored with it. And then the only other things that I added, because there's a lot that's standard on this car. I'll run through the features list in a second, but I paid like an extra, God, I can't remember how much it was, but I also paid to have the carbon fibre trim on the dash and the gear surrounds and on the steering wheel. So there was a sunroof that was extra, and I also paid a little bit extra to have the red calipers, brake calipers, rather than the blue ones, because as you can see, I wanted to tie everything together. Being a tailor and being in fashion, I kind of like, you know, things to coordinate, and that was that. I think pretty much everything else was standard. This came with a fantastic sound system. It's got the Harman Kardon, I think it's like 14 speaker surround, similar to the Mini, so you've got 2 subs under the seats and all these speakers around, and it's got surround sound and all this stuff. It's absolutely brilliant. I did not go for the Alcantara steering wheel because I thought, oh, that was my neighbour Oliver in his GR Yaris. I didn't go for the Alcantara steering wheel because I wasn't sure about it. I like the look of them, but then some people were saying that they get a bit grubby after a while with oil from your hands and stuff, and so I thought just play it safe and just go for leather. I went for the automatic, which is standard. You actually have to pay a little bit extra if you want the manual gearbox, and that's the thing. This is the last combustion engine petrol powered M car that you'll be able to get with a manual gearbox. So if this is a car that you're interested in and you're a manual enthusiast, then definitely check it out. So in terms of the first couple months, so I've not been thrashing the car because as I can't do that really until it has its braking mileage, braking service. But you can tell this thing is powerful. I mean, near 500 horsepower on a car that weighs about 1.5 tons. I think it's 1,700 kilos. The power to weight ratio is great. The car sits firmly on the road most of the time. You've got the 2 buttons on the steering wheel, M1 and M2, that you can pre-program. So I've got M2 is full fat everything, and M1 is basically sport for pretty much everything apart from the suspension set to comfort. And that for everyday driving is fantastic. It's very, very comfortable. These standard sports seats are very, very comfortable as well, I have to say. Yeah, it's just as a daily, it's been a fantastic car to drive. You can get loads of stuff in the boot, which is great. And then I've got the 2 back seats, which at the moment have got the dog beds in them, but no doubt at some point I will be transporting friends around, and that will be great. Plenty of storage in the front as well. So probably not going to show you all of that right now. You've got wireless charging. I don't actually use the keys for this car because with all of this new technology, I've actually got the car in my Apple Wallet on my iPhone and on my watch. So I just basically unlock, start the car, lock the car using my watch or my phone, which is brilliant. So maybe I'll do a video at some point where I'm just stationary taking you through all of the interior stuff. And yeah, as I say, power, that obviously it's on tap, it's there, but I've just not been able to use it yet, partly because I live in London, so it's 20 miles an hour everywhere. Although I'm kind of on the outskirts, so right now I've been doing a bit of country road stuff, so you can run a little bit quicker, but again, still, until I hit that braking service, I'm not really going to push this at all, because this car is a long-termer for me, and I want to treat it with the love and respect that it deserves. The only other thing that I did as soon as I got it is I did go to CT Carbon in Hertfordshire, and I got their carbon body kit for the G87. So front splitter, I'll hopefully just film the outside of it, and so I can overlay it on this when I do the edit. Rear spoiler, rear diffuser, change the front grille, put the side skirts on as well. And the reason I did that is because the car is just lacking a little bit of something, and putting the body kit on just really beefed it up and tied the front end particularly together really, really nicely. And I think this car does need that lip spoiler on the boot as well, but now it just looks sort of still OEM. I don't think what I've done to it makes it look tacky, but it just ties the car together nicely, and it gives it a really great road presence, a real aggressive kind of stance on the road. The engine sounds amazing as well. Like I have the exhaust open all the time, like I don't touch that button, and it does sound phenomenal. You get all the pops and the bangs, and that's always a worry when you get a car in 2024, 2025, because with all these EU regulations and so on, emissions regulations, they really are you know, making cars quieter, which is fair enough. I never thought it was cool to have an exhaust that was super loud, but when you're driving a car like this, a sports car, you want a bit of noise, right? You want the pops and the bangs, and this thing just sounds great. The gearbox is fantastic. This auto gearbox, I think from factory, I don't feel compelled to get this remapped, because from factory I think they've just got it right. The shifts are nice and quick, well, they are for me anyway, and it's just perfect. I might change my mind on that when I put this car on the track in a few weeks time, but in the meantime there's very little to complain about. The only gripe that I have is that the petrol tank is really small, and that reminds me, mentioning it, I've only got 60 miles left, so I will need to go to a petrol station. In fact, I might actually do that now while I'm thinking about it. So yeah, the petrol tank is small. You fill it up and I don't know, I think it's like a 50-litre tank, which it feels like it's the same size as the tank on my Mini. This car weighs 1700 kilos. It doesn't feel it, by the way. I know a lot of people have complained about the weight of this, like where's an extra couple hundred kilos gone on from the previous Gen M2. I don't think weight should be an issue if you can't feel it when you're driving the car, and you definitely cannot feel it in this. Yeah, the petrol tank is quite small. I wish the petrol tank was just 10 litres bigger. That would be amazing. But anyway, it's not the end of the world, because unlike charging an electric vehicle, which is a pain in the neck and takes ages, filling up with petrol does not take long at all. So anyway, there we go. That's my only little gripe. But everything else I absolutely love about this car. I just think it's great. It's practical, it's powerful, it looks amazing, especially with what I've done to it, I think. Let me know in the comments what you think of what I've done in terms of the external carbon modifications. It has been on a motorway journey or two, and it's been a fantastic cruiser as well. The friends of mine that have jumped in the car and gone for a little drive with me have been really impressed with it. And the other thing I would say as well is being built on the M4 platform, because let's be truthful, the M4 is what ideally I would love to have gone for, but as a car it's just a little bit long for me, especially with the type of driving I do. A lot of it's in central London, so you need that balance of practicality for parking and stuff. But given that it is built on the M4 chassis and it's only 20 centimeters shorter, the width of the car is the same as an M4, and the height is about the same as well. So getting into it at my height is brilliant. I've not been banging my head on the roof like I used to in the Supra. And the front cabin is just really spacious. It doesn't feel like a small car, which is obviously great. And as I say, there's lots of storage. Well, no, lights are going to change, so I can't show you. But yeah, it's just, it ticks. It really ticks so many boxes. I'm so happy with it. We're just going down Whetstone High Road now, so don't want to start scaring the locals. It's fantastic. I highly recommend this. In terms of price, so at my spec, the list price was 72,000. I managed to get it down to 65. 72 is a lot of money. I mean, at that sort of money, you're in Porsche Cayman territory. The reason why I didn't go Porsche Cayman is because it would have just put me back in the same boat as the Supra, two-seater, not very practical, and I probably would have been changing the car again within a year. But there are deals to be had out there, because I don't think car dealers are having a great time at the moment. So I did manage to get a really good price. And then how did I finance it? I have got the money to buy this car outright, because I'd saved up, and then I had some equity in the Mini and in the Supra. The Supra holds its value really well. If practicality is not a concern for you, you just want a really fun performance car, check out the Supra. Like, seriously, it was a phenomenal car. I loved it. So yeah, so at 65, that was kind of palatable to me, because if I then went for an M3 or an M4, then by the time you've spec'd it out, because there's more included as standard with the M2 in the UK than there is with the M3. By the time I spec'd up an M3 to kind of get to where the spec of this is, with all the creature comforts, the M3 was knocking up, I'm pretty sure it was over 100,000, which is ridiculous. So yeah, so I have PCP'd it. I put in quite a healthy deposit to bring my monthly payments down. but I'm gonna let it run on the PCP because it's quite low interest. It's only 5.9. I'm gonna let it run on that for 18 months to 2 years, and if by then I'm not feeling like I want to change the car for something else, because at the moment I can't think. When I got the Supra, there were probably 3 or 4 other cars, including the Porsche Cayman, including the M4, that I had on my mind that I might want to change the Supra for. So I kind of knew the Supra probably wasn't going to be a long-term thing. Just pull over at the petrol station before I go and fill up and just finish this off. And also the sucky thing on the window fell off. Anyhow, there we go. It's the first time I've ever filmed in a car. This car so far, there's no other car that's on my radar. I mean, obviously YouTube pushes a lot of car videos out to me because I'm interested in that, and I still watch you know, group tests and drag races and all that sort of thing. But there's just nothing at all out there that's turned my head. So yeah, there we go. This kind of feels like it's going to be the car for some time to come, and I'm absolutely fine with that. Absolutely fine. So in terms of what's coming up with this car, we've got a track day at the beginning of March with Box 3 Motorsport, which I'm really looking forward to, and we'll be doing some filming with my friend Trevor of Rolling Slow Media. So that I'm really excited, and he's got the OG F87 M2, which he bought recently, so we're going to be comparing the two cars. So very excited for that. So yeah, so stay tuned. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe, so you don't miss anything, and drop any questions that you've got in the comments, and I'd love to hear your feedback on how this car looks. I'll try and take some footage of the outside and insert it into this video at various points for you. But yeah, there we go. That's my first couple months with my G87 M2. I love this car so much, and I'm very happy with the decision that I made. Absolutely zero regrets. Really excited to show you more of this car over the coming months. John and Alex will be rolling their eyes if they're watching this, because I probably chewed their ears off about it when I placed the order. Yeah, there we go. We finished the Bondathon on the podcast a couple months ago, and I think I mentioned that my passion for BMW really came when I was in my teens, and I saw Bond on a big screen for the first time, which was the Pierce Brosnan movies, and obviously they were all BMW because BMW did a better deal with Eon than Aston Martin could. So, but that's where I fell in love with the badge. Right, I better go because there are people giving me weird looks at the petrol station. So I will see you soon. Remember to like and subscribe. Thank you so much.